Welcome to the very first episode of The Business of Art. And I'm going to title this, Things Don't Always Go as Planned. My name is Brandy M. Miller. I am Creating with Love. This is my YouTube channel. And this is a true story, so we'll get into it. In the beginning of December, I found out that a very dear friend of mine, somebody whom I love with all my heart, was struggling financially and had months to put together a steady, reliable source of income for themselves. They'd had knee surgery last March that left them unable to do the work that they'd been doing, and thus they'd had all kinds of financial trouble ever since. And I don't have money to give, but I realized I do have my gifts and my talents that I can contribute to somebody, and my business savvy and my knowledge of how things work. And so what I did is I put together this creative business in a box plan where I would create a work of art and 6 different designs to coordinate with that work of art, and give them full commercial license to use it. I would also add into the package templates for each of the pieces of artwork in each of the design pieces that they could then recolor or redraw or whatever they wanted to do with it to make infinite varieties for sale. And I put a lot of thought into every single element that went into this piece of artwork. This person loves to speak publicly. She's won awards for her speaking. She's highly accomplished at it. She spent multiple decades developing that speaking skill. But she struggles a bit with monetizing it. And so I thought this would be a very easy way for her to speak on a topic that's near and dear to her heart, of putting joy in other people, of bringing joy to other people. And at the end of it, she could then offer the rack card, which is a promotional piece that shows people how to buy the artwork and the designs if they choose. And then just hand that out at the end of the event. And people who wanted to buy certainly could. And if they wanted to buy prints, we'd have a location for that. Just make it very easy for her to make an income while doing the thing that she loved to do so much. And so, like I said, I put a lot of thought into every single element that went into that design, poured my heart into it. I wanted to give her a pure gift of self, no holds barred, because that's how love is meant to be. It's meant to be a pure gift of self with no holding back. And so I worked hours and hours and hours in this work, and I recorded all of the sessions so that if there were ever a challenge to her copyright or to claims that it was AI generated, she would be able to prove that no, it was human created. She could use those videos to promote the work without any effort on YouTube, and to promote her speaking engagement, because I turned the audio off so that she could record some of her speeches on the backside of the video where the art was being created, and thus basically act as a teaser for her public speaking engagements. And it took me a while longer than Christmas to get it done. In fact, it took me until January 5th. And I was the day before the Feast of the Epiphany. And I was so proud of the work that I'd done, so proud of the effort that I'd put in. So hopeful that this would be something she would not just value and appreciate, but that would elevate her economically and in many other ways, and just be a real blessing to her. And I call her up and I show her the artwork. And let's just say that her response was less than enthusiastic. She didn't like the baby Jesus at all. He was too brown, she said. His smile too wide. He didn't look natural. And she didn't like Mary's hand position. And even after I explained to her that it's traditional Catholic iconography, where the 3 fingers symbolize the Holy Trinity, and the 2 fingers that are down are about Jesus's hypostatic union of his divinity and his humanity, inseparably linked together. She still wasn't comfortable with it. She liked the cross. She liked the roses. And she liked the dove. And so I told her that she could keep the cross, the roses, and the dove, and I would keep Jesus and Mary. And my heart was just absolutely broken. I was hurt so badly by this. I was in tears, literally. And I don't cry all that often unless I'm listening to music. I really don't. But this broke me. Definitely broke me. And sadly, this all went down. I called her at 4:30. It's now 5:45. I've got a stream in 45 minutes that I'm supposed to be preparing for, and I am a mess. So I get off the phone and I tell her I've got to go. And I start praying, just praying to God for the grace to love her past this unlovable moment, to forgive her for what felt like such incredible ingratitude, and not to let this divide us, but to work past it and through it to find a way to unite us more closely than ever. And I kept praying and I kept praying. And then she tried to call me, and I picked up the phone and I told her, you are literally the last person that I need to speak to right now, because I knew that if I kept talking to her, there was nothing kind going to be coming out of my mouth. And so I didn't want to talk to her in that state. And she says, no, I need you to listen. I don't need to hear anything from you. She's like, I've decided I'll keep it. We can try selling it and see how it does. And that was like a sucker punch to the guy, because it's basically like, well, I'll pimp out Jesus and Mary even though I don't like them, and I'll see if I can make money from them. And I was like, no, that's not a good answer. I'm not going to play that game. So kept praying all the way up until my stream ended up starting like a couple minutes late, because it took me that long to get myself calmed down. And it was beautiful and I'm really glad. The only person on my stream at the start of it was somebody else that I had done this same program with. I was doing work of art for them and had done designs for them and was setting up this same program. And they were so grateful and so appreciative of the effort and the thought that I'd put into theirs, that it was a balm on my heart. It was exactly what I needed. And then the other people came in, so I was really glad that he was there by himself so I could show him what I'd done without boring other people or getting them off track. Because my art I have an interactive art stream and I want people participating. I don't want it to be a show for one. But in his case, he was the only person there, so it was okay to hijack the time for that. And I wish that I were a better Christian, that it were easier for me to forgive. But sometimes, even when I make the commitment to forgive, even when I tell myself I've forgiven, it becomes really difficult to overcome the pain that I feel in my heart. And I recognized, even in that moment, that when you're an artist and you're creating for someone else from the heart, what you create is a reflection of what's in your heart. It's a reflection of how much love you're capable of giving somebody else. But how they receive that art is a reflection of what's in theirs. You can't control the reaction. You get no feedback on that. You get no way to manipulate or control it. It's just raw. It's purely what's in their heart that comes back to you as they look at your art. And so her reaction wasn't really a reflection of me and my art. It was a reflection of how she saw the world and her thoughts and biases, and I intellectually could process that, and I intellectually could even receive that message. But because of who she is and how close she is, there's nobody, and I do mean nobody, who can hurt you as deeply as the people you love the most. There's nobody who can betray you quite as deeply with their actions, even when they don't mean to, as the people you love the most. And I knew she wasn't trying to hurt me. She was just being honest about how she felt about the piece. It was an honest reaction. She was not trying to hurt me. She was not trying to be ugly or mean. It was just, this is how she saw it. And I knew that intellectually. But emotionally, I wasn't there. And it is the 18th as I'm telling you this story. And I told her later that I would create a new work of art specifically for her that did not contain Mary and Jesus, but instead contained the elements that she liked and appreciated. And then her response to me was, who's going to want that? What's going to make that special from all the other roses and doves and crosses that are out there? And I didn't even have words to respond to that. Because obviously she didn't understand what I was talking about was composing a completely new work of art, not just tossing her the roses and the dove and the cross with nothing else. But she kind of lacks vision sometimes. And so, again, another wound. It's like she just kept piling them on, not intending to, but intentions really don't matter. What matters is how what you say and do lands on the other person's heart. You can have the best intentions in the world and do a whole lot of damage with careless words. And one thing I will say is that she wanted me to talk to her, and she was trying to push for me to talk to her. And so I sent her an email trying to explain why I didn't want to talk to her in a hurry. And it was basically pulled from Proverbs, 2 quotes about a fool rushing to speak, but a more prudent man holding back. And she took that as me calling her a fool and was very insulted. It wasn't that. I was trying to explain that I would be a fool if I rushed to speak, but that's not how she took it. And again, it doesn't really matter what my intentions were as to whether or not it caused a wound. It matters more about how she interpreted what I sent her. So that's the kind of sticky part about human relationships is you can have the best intention and still cause a lot of pain to somebody else with just simple things. I guess in that sense, words are like art. The words that come out of your mouth are a reflection of your heart. And how people receive them is a reflection of what's in theirs. And this is where our disconnect in human relationships tends to be, is that we judge other people's hearts by what's in ours. Not a good situation. So anyway, like I said, it's the 18th now. This whole thing started on the 5th. 13 days. And even though I said that I forgave her, I recognized I still couldn't even bear the thought of calling and talking to her, which meant that I hadn't really forgiven her. And then I sat down and last Sunday worked on it and realized that I attributed her problems with the piece to being a case of racism, because part of her problem was that the lips were too fat and the skin too brown. And so, that seemed like racism to me, a clear case of it, right? But one of the things that God helped me to understand is, no, this isn't about race. This is about a sense of right, what's right and what's not right. And she was looking for realism in the art, which I don't aim for that. My art tends to be very stylistic. So I'm not aiming for realism. I'm not aiming for photorealism, but I guess that's the style that she likes. And mine was not that. And the too brown, she said that Jewish babies aren't that brown. Well, what she doesn't understand is that in the skin of baby Jesus was all colors reflected, because within Christ, all of us are members of his body, and so all of our colors are represented there. And since she wanted to bring joy to the world, I thought that adequately reflected it. And then, like I said, so she wanted me to change his skin color. She wanted me to change Mary's hand position because she felt like American Catholics wouldn't get it and would reject it because of that. So I said, at this point, I was kind of recognizing, though, that it wasn't a case of racism, and I unfairly accused her of that to somebody else who also knows her and is also close to her. And so I went and I apologized to that person and explained the insight that God gave me, that this isn't about racism, it's about rightism. It's about what seems right in her eyes. And I think that's been our friction, our entire relationship. She has a very, almost, I would say, dogmatic sense of what is right and what is not right. And she's very quick to bring up or correct what she sees as not right, even when she's not in the right. And what this leads to, almost Pharisaic, I would say. It leads to rigidity in her positioning, that she can't be flexible, because if it doesn't conform to her sense of right, then it's wrong. And that has caused a whole lot, because I'm not like that, so it's hard for me to process things that way. But the world doesn't feel safe to her unless she has that rule of right. So she needs it to conform to that in order for her to feel safe in the world. At any rate, so that was last week. I got through that part, and I could accept that, but I still, just looking at the phone, it was more than I could even think of to pick up the phone and talk to her, which, kind of told me that I wasn't healed, that the pain that I felt was a reflection of the fact that I hadn't fully forgiven her. I hadn't found a way to set things right in my heart. And so this morning I went again to confession and prayed for the grace to be able to love this sister the way that God does. And as I'm working through Mass and I'm praying through Mass, I'm hearing God tell me, hey, You ever caused me a pain and wanted me to just forgive and understand, and you're upset that I don't? Um, can you imagine if I held all of the pain that you've caused me against you? Yeah, yeah, I get it. I get it. And then he put it in a beautiful terms that really made it crystal clear where my mistake was. He said, "She is my work of art. I have spent decades crafting her, painstakingly, every detail of her, to be a gift to you that will bring so many blessings into your life. But you keep picking my gift apart and telling me what parts you want and what parts you don't, and telling me you want me to change this and change that. And then you wonder why you have problems." He said, "I need you to accept that gift just the way it is, and to recognize that the gift that I'm presenting you is exactly the blessing that you need in this moment. I have every detail of her is in your life for a reason." Just like, and I realized in that moment that we often do that to one another as human beings, especially when we're in community with other people. We like this part about a person, but they have this flaw that we want changed, or that thing that we don't like about them, or this part of them that we don't understand, or their humor is off, or maybe they smell bad, or maybe they don't do all the things that they need to do, and maybe they're not perfect in their integrity and can always live up to their commitments, or maybe they have a habit of shooting their mouth off without thinking, or maybe they're super combative with everybody and hard to get along with, or maybe they're taciturn and difficult. And we want God to change that. We want to accept them only when they're perfect in our eyes. And maybe what we need to do instead is look at each person around us as God's work of art that He has carefully crafted to help us, to bless our lives, and to ask Him to show us the gift, to help us understand and unpack that gift, rather than blocking them from our lives or from our communities because they're so difficult, because they cause so many problems. Ask Him what He's trying to show us. Because I promise you, the gift that He's asking you to receive is designed to bring good things, abundant blessings into your life. But you don't get to pick and choose how that gift comes. You don't get to choose the wrapping paper or the ornamentation or the placement of this or that element of the design. And if you don't like it, if you don't like what you see, maybe consider what it is in your heart that's the problem. Maybe ask Him, as I had to help you see the situation through His eyes. If you find yourself surrounded by fake people, where are you being fake? If you find yourself surrounded by difficult people, where are you being difficult? If you find yourself surrounded by unethical people, where are you being unethical? If you find yourself constantly in a fight with other people, maybe the problem isn't them. Maybe the problem is you. And maybe it's time to ask God, how do I fix what's broken in me so that I stop fighting with the people around me? So that I stop finding flaws in every gift you're sending my way and rejecting it and asking for something better. Because that kind of behavior really hurts God's heart. So that's the lesson from things don't always go the way you plan. If you learned something from this, I'm grateful for sharing the truth with you. If you find me a little judgmental and a little hard to get along with and maybe not as holy as you'd hoped, well, join the party, pal. I never promised you I'm a saint in training. So I definitely haven't arrived. And I don't want to pretend to be holier than I am, because I'm not anywhere near as holy as I should be. Someday, ask me to tell you about the $7 pizza or about my fine that I had to pay when I was in Germany. They're funny stories looking back. They sure weren't funny then. But just know and understand that I'm sharing this with you because I hope it helps you. And I hope that it keeps you from holding back with your art, because I know that one of the reasons that a lot of people who are creative hold back is their fear of exactly what happened here happening to them, of the work that they produce being rejected or unappreciated by the person who receives it. So one of the things it's important to understand that as a creative, especially as you step out onto a platform to share your work and you get more and more known, you're going to get critics and adversaries who show up, and they're going to tear your work to pieces. Some of them are genuinely bad players, and they find no greater joy than to hurt you, because they're so miserable in their own lives that they want everybody else to be equally miserable, which is kind of a miserable way to live, and you kind of got to pity them for that. So those people, they're just going to tear you down. They're just going to say ugly stuff. And in that case, just figure that whatever words they say to you, that's the best gift they've got to offer, which is kind of pathetic if you think about it, but it is the best gift they've got to offer. Thank them for the gift and move on with your day. Pray for the grace to forgive them if you're having trouble with it, but really recognize that 99% of what other people do has nothing to do with you and everything to do with what they're struggling with in the moment. Sometimes people are hypercritical of other people's work because they're hypercritical of themselves. They don't value themselves, so it's hard for them to value anybody else. And just recognize that your job is not to control the outcome. You can't. If you're going to create, you can't control the outcome. You can't control the reaction. You can't control how it's received. All you can control, and the thing you should focus on controlling, is how much love you've poured into what you create. How much heart, how much of your humanity, your empathy, your authenticity, your relatability, and your trustworthiness have you put into what you created? And if you've given it 100%, if you've given it everything you've got and left it all on the table, then you've done your job. Being a creator is a leadership position. Maybe the world doesn't see you that way, but you are a leader. You are a leader the moment that you influence somebody else's heart, mind, and behavior. And as a leader, you're going to have critics. You're going to have adversaries. You're going to have people who want to tear you down or who find flaws in what you do. The best way to handle those isn't to let them stop you from leading. It's to listen, to understand what they're trying to say. Take out of it the good stuff. If there's something that's genuinely pointing out a flaw that can be fixed or that needs to be fixed, take it under advisement, fix the flaw, and make your work better. if it's something that's a them problem, not a you problem, have compassion. It may take time. It may take a lot of prayer. It may take a lot of God opening your eyes, but have compassion. They're struggling with something clearly. You can turn those same critics and adversaries into your allies and advocates, even if it's unwitting. The more they're talking about you, the more they hate your work, the more they're going to talk about your work. See, we don't talk about the ordinary, but we can't stop talking about the extraordinary. And that's true whether it's good extraordinary or bad extraordinary. If it extraordinarily triggers our emotions, we're going to nonstop talk about it. So don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of irritating your critics. They're going to yap about you all over the internet. People will learn a lot more about you from them than they will from the people who love you. Sad to say. But the bottom line is, your critics are your friends. They're going to tell you the truth that your best friends won't. People who care about your feelings aren't going to say the things to you that your critics and your adversaries will. They'll straight up tell you where your flaws are and give you an opportunity to fix those because they're bringing your awareness to it. And yeah, it's going to sting, but so does the scalpel's knife when it cuts into the flesh that's diseased. Doesn't mean you don't need that. Just means you need to know what it is and leverage it. So, that's the first lesson in the business of art. Things don't always go the way you planned, and how you handle that can either destroy you and keep you from building a successful career in art and creativity, or you can leverage it and use it to grow spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically, and catapult you forward to your next level of success. Because the better you become at handling this stuff, the better you'll become at handling an audience. And when you grow bigger, you're going to need all the help you can get. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, consider sharing it with somebody else. If you're new to this channel and you're just finding this and you found these words of wisdom something you like to listen to, subscribe. I've got plenty of... I joke that I was born with the initials BS and I'm full of it. I mean, full of wisdom. Right. That's what I meant to say. Full of wisdom to offer. So stick around. You'll hear it from me all the time in various ways. And yeah, thanks for watching. And I hope this blessed your life. And if you are interested in getting a creative business in a box for yourself, let me know, because I'm looking to bless more than a few people this year with my gifts and art and skills. And you might be the next person I choose. Have a great day.